Good afternoon. My name is Jim Taylor with the Oregon Department of Education, and we are holding a nuts and bolts getting started, kick off the new school year with YouScience to help our users around the state get ready for the 22-23 school year and using YouScience at their locations. What I'd like to do, folks, is do a screen share with you on the document that is called, I'll need you to stop screen sharing, Jerica, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. Okay, and this document is called the Career Connected Learning Office Hour, YouScience. I'm going to do a quick 2 to 3 minute walkthrough so everybody's aware of what it's about, and then know that it's available to you, and you can put a star on it. You can grab the link and put it where you'll be able to find it. Anything you need to do to have access to it. We take the questions and answers from the session and refine them, clean them up, make sure everything's nice, neat, and clean, and continue to build a frequently asked questions section, and you'll see that as we're moving forward. We're asking you to reach out to jerica.mcmahan and myself, Jim Taylor. If you have any questions, Jerica is at YouScience. I am at the Department of Education. You can see the names and locations and titles of folks that are with us today, and we invite you, if you haven't yet, to please join in and add your information here. As we scroll down the page, I want to share some information with you today. We're starting with how to follow along in this document, what's in it. And during the meeting today, we'll focus on Jerica's screen share. She's also shared the links to the slides, so you can set it up how it works best for you wherever you are. And I'm going to ask if you would add notes into the chat or into the document, and I'll show you where in just a second. Add notes to the chat or into the document, and we'll kind of hold the out loud questions for pause points as they come up in Jerica's session. She's got them built in very nicely, and it's been working with our past shares. We really encourage you to speak up and speak out, so please do join us on those open out loud moments. In addition, Beth and Jerica and myself will stay after for a wee bit, and invite anybody else to stay after that wants to kind of have a more informal conversation, or you need a little more detail that you think might be more specifically about your location. We're asking you to please consider jumping into this document, the YouScience Contacts and Participants form. That link will take you to a Google form and ask you for information so that we know all the right people are getting the information for this year as it relates to YouScience. So please consider that, and especially if you're working with multiple schools, you can add a document and provide us all the info that will help us communicate with the folks in your areas. So if that ends up being multiple teachers at your school or across your district, just feel free to use that, and you can share that with others as you see fit. Wanted to share this release just came out today by ACTE, the Association for Career Technical Education, sharing YouScience's report on the state of the future U.S. workforce student readiness report there for your perusal, and invite you to read it. And we will have conversations about that at future gatherings. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to Jerica or myself for information. But there's a lot of very useful information, and we'll show you even how your reports can be generated to take a look at what's happening in your school and in your region. As a reminder, we're asking you to get 20 kiddos into your system by September 30th. We want to just alleviate a little bit of the stress. You're here, you're active, you're engaged. Just get 20 kids in that system, and what it does is it locks in the YouScience account for you and your school and your kids. After that date, you can populate with as many students as you want and need, and with those additional administrators of the tools. But please, if you would do your best to get 20 kiddos in by September 30th. If you've heard, get them tested. If you can, that's great. But please know that we just need to get their data populated in there so we can get you rocking and rolling. The big list of resources and questions is below, so we do recommend that you start this document because you can get back to those and all the things that we're going to show you in a second. I'm going to ask, what do you need help with? And you can put this in the chat, or you could certainly put it right here. And that would be, what do you need help with? So as we do future office hours, what's some things that would help you support your school, your students, and your region? We're already planning ahead. We have gone from 26 users to over 180 in the state in less than a year and a half. And so we are now talking about having a spring YouScience super user conference. So our question to you today is, are you interested in a super user conference? And if you have thoughts around what's the best time in April or May, just throw some ideas in there for us. Even more exciting, would anybody be interested in hosting? If yes, throw your names down there, or you're interested in the professional development or the sharing that goes along with that, would you please put your name and location in there, and we'll reach out and contact you and start thinking and planning about that. Thank you. During Jerica's share and throughout the session, you can simply grab a dot and add in your questions, and we will immediately, myself and Beth Molenkamp, be answering in the moment. We will grab from the chat and we will add it in here for you. So you get to a place where you're comfortable, put your questions in the chat, push your questions in the document, ask them out loud when we get to our pause points. All the things, you'll find that we have all of the links constantly populated in the all the things section. This is the recording from several weeks ago. Here's the slide deck. This is from the old slide deck. So have you refreshed it, Jerica? So if they hit that slide deck now, they're going to get the one they have today. Fantastic. We encourage you to sign up for the office hours. The office hours are 4 meetings a month. The first Thursday of the month, we focus on career counseling advising. The second Thursday on work-based learning. The third on Oregon CIS and on YouScience. And in November, December, we're going to see Oregon CIS and YouScience share the third Thursday because we have holiday weeks in those 2 months. So please sign up for those if you would like to join us for that constant support. Really useful documents in here that we hope that you will try out. This, a guiding questions for you and your team of adults as you're getting ready. This YouScience implementation guiding questions can help you build the system for your students. And a wonderful share from Vail on how they have taken the results and how they move their students through the process of exploring all the results. You'll hear about the toolkits from Jerica today. And then we have a long list of links and resources that's down further in the document from the last 1.5 years of work. These are the questions and answers from the last session. We're going to create our own database today. I'm going to stop for 1 second and ask if anybody has any questions before we share and turn it over to Jerica. Thank you to Beth for keeping that in the chat. Looks like the North Coast is out of internet. We are sorry. We will definitely get them the recording. Okay, I'm a former middle school teacher. I'm going to give you the 10-second honest pause and wait for anybody to ask any questions or anything in the chat. Elizabeth, that's an exciting, getting to work with former middle schoolers now with you at the high school. Okay, if there are no questions, let's rock and roll. If you want to put your cursor in the question and answer section of the document or in the chat, we encourage you to focus on what Jerica is sharing. And Jerica will do some pauses as we hit these little stop parts throughout the presentation. Jerica, to you, please.
Thanks, Jim. First off, what a wealth of information. Just going through that document is like very impressive. So if you feel overwhelmed at first, just by looking at it going, oh my gosh, there's so much that I can learn and that I can take from, it's okay. Take a deep breath. I promise it all makes sense. There is a lot of it though, and a lot of it is to help you and to make you be successful. So hopefully it's not too overwhelming. Hopefully it's exciting. A lot of the work has been done for you. So I know that I am here to help you along the way. I know Jim is also available just about all of the time, it seems like. I shouldn't say that because he's going to be like, stop, emails. But we are available. We are happy to help you with anything that you need along the pathway to success. So please feel free to reach out. My name is Jerica. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I am your customer success manager for the entire state of Oregon, and I have the pleasure of working with all of the schools in Oregon that use YouScience. I like to introduce myself at the beginning of these, but I also want to just introduce you to this whole team of people that I have helping me. So I can't take all of the credit. We do have a fantastic group of people. There will not be a quiz at the end of this on whether or not you can remember their names or faces. That's fine. I just want you to know that there are people here, particularly this fantastic support team along the bottom. We have real life people that work for our support team. They are not just robots that you can chat into. They are fantastic helpers. They are problem solvers, and they will help you in the moment. So if you need something immediately, you can absolutely reach out to them. But there's 3 different ways to reach out to them. There's either the chat support on our website. They have email, or you can call them directly. So if you can't get a hold of me and you need something immediately, you can absolutely reach out to them. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump in. So I like to start this off just by getting you thinking a little bit about when you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up? And maybe that was a bus driver or a weatherman or a paleontologist or a public speaker or an actor or whatever it happened to be for you. You can, if you feel brave and you want to just put that into the chat, you absolutely can, but no pressure. One other question, now that you're thinking about what you wanted to be when you were a kid, I want to ask you kind of a more difficult question. How many of you know someone or are someone who had to shift careers before you found the perfect fit? I feel like everybody in my life, at least, has shifted careers or shifted jobs or shifted college majors, or they've made some kind of change along the way because what they initially planned, what they initially thought that they wanted to do, ended up not being that perfect fit. And it's really common for us to find people in our lives that had to go through that process of finding out what is best for them. So that's what YouScience is all about. We want to help students identify what they're naturally good at and match them to a list of careers that help narrow that field a little bit for them so that they can start thinking about what is their best fit. And we don't do that based on interest because interest is pretty subjective and it changes all the time based on what students are exposed to or what experiences they have. But instead, we focus on aptitude. So aptitudes are really what you're naturally good at, and it's based on performance. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit, but that's what makes YouScience different. And I'm excited to share with you guys about how to get started. So a couple of things for our agenda. I wanted to go over kind of the before you begin pieces. So that can be anything from technology requirements or your ambassador checklist and things to help you plan. But then we're also going to look at the actual nuts and bolts. How do I get my students into this system? There's two ways of doing that, and we'll go over both of those. And then finally, the best practices and Q&A. So what are some other schools doing? What have we seen at YouScience to be kind of a best practice or a best way of doing things in order to have that successful implementation? So I did put the slides into the chat, and I did that for a reason. You will notice throughout these slides, there's several things that are underlined in black. So if there's an underline in something on a slide, it is a resource for you. So if you're more of a visual person and you want to go through the slides and click on resources as you go, you can absolutely do that. Anything that's underlined is a resource for you. So I put at the top of this one, save this slide, because just about everything you need, at least from the like nuts and bolts side of things, is on this slide. So make sure that you save this, save all those links. You're going to want them later. I don't expect you to explore all of them just yet, but save this so that you know where it is later. So I'm just going to go really quickly and walk through some of these resources. First thing is to submit your implementation plan. I've gotten a lot of implementation plans already, so thank you if your school has already submitted that to ODE. I'm just doing the best job tracking all of those and making sure that everybody is taken care of. But if you click on this link, it's going to take you to the implementation form. This is where we just want an outline of what your plan is for your school. So who's in charge, how many students are you working with, and how do you plan on working with the program? So it's a very simple form. I also want to share with you this ambassador checklist. So this ambassador checklist is pretty fantastic. If you're wondering where to start, what to do, this is a step-by-step guide on how to actually get started. So this would be a really helpful resource. It again has multiple links in it. So it's just step by step. What do I need to do? How can I check these off the list? So I would definitely keep track of that one. And then this is the new one, the Involve Your Team. I believe that is what Jim shared already about getting your team members onto that contacts and participation list. So if you need that resource, it's available. We also have a technical requirements checklist. So I like to point this one out simply because a lot of schools I have found have firewalls or they have blockers up that will not allow students to access certain websites. And you have to be put on the list, right? You have to be whitelisted in order for your IT department to allow students to access these websites or to receive emails from these websites. So this is a document for you. You can send this over to your IT department, and it outlines everything for them, exactly what you're going to need in order to have those emails sent out to students correctly. There's also the student account prep. So this is a link to a video on how to actually upload your student rosters. I'll show you that live here in just a little bit, but I like to point this one out because it shows what all of our knowledge base articles kind of look like. So within YouScience, you're going to have access to this knowledge base. This knowledge base is full of tutorials and lesson plans and videos for you. This one, for example, has a short video for you on how to bulk upload, but it also outlines it in step-by-step guidance here. Any questions on this slide before I kind of move on? Okay, awesome. So share with your team, caregivers, social media, or with your state. We do have them. I'm added in the CCL or the Career Connected Learning regular office hours. If you'd like to register for those, that's what Jim was saying was every fourth Thursday is YouScience Day. So you can click on that to register. And then our other resources here for you: high school toolkits, middle school toolkits, kickoff videos, and implementation roadmaps. These are some things that you're going to want on hand as you're starting to explain to students or to your school what YouScience is and why you want to use it. So let's go ahead and jump in. A little bit of background information. What is YouScience Discovery, if you've not heard of it, or how does it even work? We have 3 different types of assessment. So it starts in the 6th grade. I should have these sorted out a little bit differently, but we've got 6th grade at the youngest level. That is an interest inventory alone. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes, and it does not assess any student aptitudes. This is available if your school is using the 7th and 8th grade snapshot assessment, but we don't necessarily offer it to elementary schoolers. That 6th grade is the top level. So if you have 6th grade housed in the same building as your 7th and 8th graders, that the snippet is available for you. In middle school, we call it Snapshot. It is for 7th and 8th graders. It is 5 brain games and an interest inventory. So it kind of builds upon that interest inventory that your 6th graders already took. And then in 9th grade and beyond, we call it Summit. This is our full aptitude assessment. It is 9 brain games, an interest inventory, a personality profile, and there's also the addition of 5 optional brain games that are called amplifiers. And you're able to offer those to your students if they want to take it, but they don't have to in order to get their results. That's something we encourage them to do as they move on from high school and go into that post-secondary or work life. There are also 500 careers that get matched to your students at the high school level. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So how does it work? In middle school, the snapshot assessment takes about 60 minutes, and in high school, it takes about 90 minutes. The brain games do not have to be completed all at once. So if 90 minutes seems like a huge time constraint and you just don't know where you're going to find that, don't worry. I've broken it down for you into like a 3-day implementation or even an 8-day implementation. You can do this in as many chunks as you need to, and we don't expect you to do it all in one day. Students can get started with a unique activation code, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about activation codes, but they are generated through the admin portal, which you should have access to if you've completed that implementation plan. These can be entered manually for a student, so you can download it and tell the student what their code is, or you can send them an email invitation. That's my preferred method, but I'll show you how to do either one of those. So at the high school level, I've kind of shown you these. This is all of the high school brain games and all of the middle school brain games. You can see the exercise length and the number of items on the brain games. So you can see that there's some overlap. For example, visual comparison speed and numerical reasoning will be available at both the middle school and high school levels. Vocabulary, for example, is only at the high school. Now, if you've never seen any of our brain games before, I'm just going to quickly show you some examples. This is one of our spatial visualization brain games. The idea here is that you will take this imaginary piece of paper, fold it in half a couple of times, punch a hole in it, and identify where the holes will be if you were to unfold this imaginary piece of paper. You might also run into a brain game on inductive reasoning where you're given seemingly unrelated images and asked to draw a relationship between them. So, Either one of those is just a quick example. Like I said, in the high school level, there's 9 different batteries. So they're going to go through multiple exercises in this style and in that style, as well as several other games. Now here I'm going to kind of flip-flop between what Summit users see versus what Snapshot users see. So Summit results show the student several different aspects. They can see their certifications if they've taken any with us. They can see opportunities in their area. So this connects them to job shadow or internships or even part-time or full-time positions. They can click on that and find those that match to them based on their brain games. They can view their aptitudes, their best fit careers, nearby colleges, and the describing you section. In middle school, it looks a little bit different. They can still see their career clusters. They just won't see specific careers. We show them their top 2 talents, and you'll notice that at the middle school level, it says level up. So when they turn into high schoolers every summer, our system automatically rolls them up, so you don't have to worry about that. But once they become high schoolers, this level up button down here is going to appear for them, and that'll allow them to take the high school version. In the high school results, you get your aptitude wheel, your personal approach assessment, as well as how you contribute to a team and types of work that interest you. At the middle school level, we give you your top 2 talents and your interests. At the high school level, you get matched to specific career cards, and you get to see how you match to this career based on aptitude. But at the middle school level, instead of showing you those specific career cards, we're showing you a career cluster. So students can still click onto these clusters and view some career cards, but they won't be able to see this aptitude and interest match alignment. So they won't be able to see those scales kind of come together. All right, so signing in. Most of you have already signed in at least once, but if you've not done that, this is what it's going to look like. You'll get an invitation email that'll ask you to activate your account. You'll set up a password. We are FERPA compliant, so we do have some password requirements for you. As an administrator, you'll have to reset that every 6 months. So it's something to keep in mind. If you use a password manager, that's completely fine. You can use those that won't interfere with the account. So now I wanted to go ahead and look at the administrative portal live so you can see what it looks like.
I'm going to jump in right there, Jerica.
Yeah.
Just do a double check with everybody. How are you feeling? We would love in the reactions if you could put a thumbs up if the pace is good and you're keeping up, or you know that you can go back and reflect on the work. Thumbs down does not upset us if we're going too fast. We will look for those now.
Yeah, please
We're
let me
seeing
know.
good thumbs up. Okay, great. And while we're paused, are there any questions currently? Okay, let's keep rocking and rolling.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So as we go into the portal, you'll notice that as the administrator, as a teacher, educator, I have 3 additional buttons that you didn't see on those student results pages. I still get to see all of my own results because as a teacher or educator, we want you to take your own brain games and experience the assessment for yourself, identify some of your core strengths, and just kind of build up some of your own self-awareness and confidence. That way you can share it with your students and build up their buy-in for the program. A lot of people have told us that their students got really excited about taking YouScience once they saw their teacher's results. So it kind of makes it real for them that they can see how valid it is, because your students know you pretty well. At least mine always did. So they can kind of pick out what YouScience says about you, and they can connect. Oh my gosh, she does that all the time. That is so her. And that kind of just builds that validation for them and lets them take it seriously. We don't want students to go through and just click a whole bunch of buttons and not care about the assessment. So building up that buy-in at the front end is really important. We don't usually allow retakes for students. So if there are extenuating circumstances, obviously, if there's an internet outage, that's something that we want to make sure that we accommodate. If there was a fire drill or if there was some other interruption, we're happy to reset student brain games for those. But generally, if a student just wants to retake it, we try to stay away from that. And that's because data shows that your aptitudes stabilize and that even when you think you might be gaming the system, you're really not. So we try not to reset it, make sure that they know to take it seriously ahead of time. Just a little bit of a best practice. So we can go through all of my results, but I'm not going to make you do that because I just showed you a little bit of snippets of all of that. One thing that I do want to show you is the Opportunities tab. This is where your students will actually be able to connect to local employers. So this is based on my location, so you're not really going to recognize any of these. As the educator, I get to see their contact information, what career areas they hire in. But as a student, I'm able to see their logo, how many employees they work with, what areas they hire in, and I can reach out to the careers page on their website if I'm interested. So within your admin dashboard, let's talk about how we actually get them into the system. So when I click on admin dashboard, one thing that I'll point out first is that if you work at multiple campuses, which some of you might, you're going to have this toggle or this drop down menu that'll allow you to switch between the middle school and the high school if you happen to work with both, or multiple different high schools, whatever the situation may be. The menu here is exactly the same for all of those campuses. If something looks off or looks different, let me know. It should all look the same. You can search for a specific student up here in the top right corner. So if I want to look for my demo student, I can search for Jess, and I can pull up any student that has Jess in their name. So I can find that student. I'm able to see how many brain games they've completed in dark gray and how many they have left to go in light gray. I can view their results, reset their password for them, download a results summary or a discussion guide. The results summary is 30 pages. The discussion guide is only 5. But I get a little bit of background information on them, and I can also impersonate them anytime. So if I want to see what Jess's account looks like, I can do so. I'm going to go ahead and stop impersonating her for just a minute. So when I want to get my students logged into the system, I'm going to choose 2 different ways to do that. I can either offer an activation code manually, or I can send out email invitations which send that code to each individual student. One of the questions we get a lot is there like a school code or a class code that they can use instead? And unfortunately not. Each student, in order to activate an account, has to have their own unique code. So when you want to upload students, there's 2 ways to do it. You can either upload them in bulk. I would say to do this if you've got any more than 10 students at a time that you're uploading, but you can also invite them individually. I'll show you how to do that right after I show you bulk. So with the bulk invite, and if you have access to your SIS system, if you've already got your student roster, you're welcome to follow along with me and do this. There is a download spreadsheet template option here. So you'll click on download spreadsheet template. It should load an Excel file for you. This Excel file will open, and basically it is fill in the blank. So you have to name your group. You can list out your student's name. You can list out their email if you plan on sending emails, and their student ID. But you'll notice that all of these columns are completely optional. The only one that I would recommend for sure is the email if you plan on sending out email invitations. So our best practice is to use the class of naming convention. So it could be class of 2022. You can paste in all of your student emails directly from your SIS, and then you can just drag this down the number of accounts that you have. So if I needed 31 students, I could just drag it down like that. Any questions on this template? Pretty simple. Okay. Awesome. If I don't have those student emails and I don't want to upload them because I just want to give them their direct code, I can still do that. The process is the same, except that I can leave everything else blank. If you still wanted to assign their name, you could do that, but you don't have to. If you just want blank codes that you can distribute to any student, you can leave the rest of these fields blank. So I'm going to go ahead and just call this one example as well, so that it's easy for us to find in my group. So let's say that I'm ready to download this. Just gonna save this. This is 30. So once I've created my template or I filled out my template, I'm gonna upload that completed spreadsheet. I'm gonna find it in my quick access. Here we are. And upload it. So now it's saying that this group doesn't currently exist. So I'm going to say to go ahead and create the group and the invitations and then dismiss. So once I've done that, I can now go back to my Manage Groups section. So this button right here, and I'm going to look for that group that I just created. So it should say class of 2022 example. So one thing that you'll notice right off the bat is that this says 0 and 0. This is a quick snapshot of what's going on in that group. So I can see some of these have students that have results ready or are in the assessment. For mine, nobody's gotten started on it yet because I just created the group. Now within this group, I can see multiple tabs. There are unassigned codes, there are active users, pending invitations, those that are on hold or in progress or results ready. If they're on hold, that means that I've created a group that has a results hold on it. Most of your groups will stick to this inactive setting, which is totally fine. That's the recommended setting. This means that as soon as students earn their results, they will be able to see their results. There's no wait time. They don't have to wait on you as the teacher to release those results to them. So if I go to pending invitations, I can see all these blank codes. Any questions on what to do with this code? Okay, so you can distribute these to your students. You can either click on the code or you can update the invitation and put their information in here. You can type in their email if you wanted to do that, click update, and now you've just assigned a code to a specific person. If I wanted to send this, I can click on this and send the invitation email. If you did include their email in the template, that would be listed out here, at which point you can just select the box, select all, and send all invitation emails. There is nothing automated in the system. So if you upload your roster, it's not going to automatically send out those invitations. It gives you some flexibility to be able to say, I'm going to upload my rosters on Monday, but I don't plan on actually pushing this out to students until the following Monday or until Friday, whatever works for your schedule. Any questions on sending invitation emails? Yes, Lori.
Can you print this as well? And then I was thinking about printing them and putting them on index cards so that when I talk to the class, if they don't have them, I can pass them out and then take back the index card per person.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So one way that you can do that, if we wanted to print this off rather than sending an invitation email, you can click on Get Students Started and download your activation codes. And this allows you to find the group that you want. So class of 2022 example, I can download this and now it's going to show me all of my unused codes. So all of the codes that I uploaded are now here. And you can see because I've updated this to have Jim's name on it, it's already updated in the file as well. So you can assign these to your students. You can print this off on an Excel spreadsheet. I've seen teachers go ahead and select all of this and make it like 20 or 25 or 36 point font, and then ask like an EA or an administrator an office administrator to help you cut these into strips so you can hand them out to students. So that's another option if you don't want to have to handwrite those onto index cards. But yeah, great question. Actually ask your administrators. Ask them to help. That'd be really nice, right? I know my principal actually would when I was teaching. He was so nice. So that is what the managing groups or getting your students started button looks like. You can either download that activation code, or if you have to add that one kid who came into your class 3 weeks after the rest of the class was uploaded, how do I upload that one student or maybe just those 2 students? You can click on Manage Invitations and you can invite them one at a time. So you can click on any group of yours and just type in their information and then send the invitation email and click Invite. So it generates that code for them immediately. It also generates an activation link. And if they click on this link, so I'm just going to try and go over here. So if they click on this link, you'll see it automatically fills in their email. It automatically fills in their activation code. All they have to do is create a password and agree. So it's really simple to get your students started. A couple of different ways: direct activation codes, like on an index card or cut into strips, or you can send out those invitation emails if you have your student emails. Great question. Okay, so a couple other buttons within our admin dashboard. We can download an engagement report. What this does is it shows you who's logging in and when they're logging in. So if you click on a single group, for example, we can, I'm going to pick this one because it actually has some data in it, but you can see who's logging into your accounts and what they're doing. So let me pull this around. Here I can see their name, I can see their email that they have on file, I can see their graduation year, I can see what their status is. So obviously here I can see some students have completed their bio, some have joined the account, but they haven't done a bio, some have started the assessment, some even have results ready. I can also see when they last logged in. So this is really helpful if you are assigning a assessment for a homework assignment. That's another cool thing is it's all online, so it can be done at home. If you assign it as a homework assignment and want to just check in and see, did little Johnny actually log in like he said he did, you can come back and track that. So that's another cool feature. And then last thing is to manage your organization. So you don't have to do this alone. I know taking on a new program or initiative at a school can be a lot. So you don't have to do this by yourself. If you click on manage organization, there we go. It will allow you to add other administrators of the account. So this is not necessarily just for your principals, although it can be. It's flexible to that school. So this can be anyone at your school that you want to have access to all groups. If you want them to see everything, they need to be an admin. If you only want them to see the class of 2022 example group, then they need to be managers. So I'll show you what this looks like. I could just type in an email and click add. And then all the way down here at the bottom, I'm going to make sure that I choose Save Changes. This actually sends that person an invitation to become an administrator on my school account. So because this is the YouScience account, just about everybody that works in the company has a list here. Yours will probably be much smaller. If instead of having access to all of these groups, you only want them to have access to the group that you say, you can click on your group and click Group Settings. Within group settings, it'll allow you to do the exact same thing. I can add group managers here by clicking the add button and saving those updates. So again, there's two tiers. Managers have access to only the groups you assign them. Admin have access to the entire school, all students, all groups.
So that would be a great place to call out if you're doing a school-wide initiative. You might give management to the class that an educator, counselor might be working with, or a cluster of students. And then those who are kind of working as leadership for the whole process and program have the administrative access. So that gives you a chance to kind of narrow down the accessibility as an adult. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, great addition. So that's just something to keep in mind. Another question that comes up a lot with that is there a limit to how many managers we can have on a specific group? And there is not. You can have as many managers or administrators for your school account, just like you can have as many student accounts as you want. There's no limit, so feel free to go crazy with it. Let me go ahead and go back. So this kind of shows you all of the different administrator buttons that you have within your admin dashboard. But I also want to show you your navigation pane because we're also able to see our help center and insights.
Could we do a quick pause right here, Jerica, if you don't mind?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So we've had a few questions pop up in the chat. One was, can middle school students take the high school version before becoming a high school student?
The only way that they could do that is if they go to their account page. So let me show you that. Technically, they could if they go up here to their account and actually change their grade level manually. Most of them aren't going to do that, but technically, I guess they could if they if they're in middle school, it's going to ask them what grade they're in. So I guess if they really wanted to, they could click on in high school or in grad school and change that. But generally, once they choose their grade level at the beginning, it just levels them up year over a year. So if they start in 7th grade, it'll move them to 8th. And if they start in 8th, it'll move them to 9th.
And I think the other important thing to call out there is that it is actually recommended that they not take the high school until they're 14 or over in that range, because there's that concrete fundamental setting that's kind of taking place neurologically. So the high school version is designed to work with students who are in that 14 zone and older. And that's when the results are consistent over time. So if Jimmy walks in and takes it as a 9th grader and Jimmy walks in and takes it as a 50-year-old, my results are going to be very, 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 very close to the same, because it's dealing with those skills and aptitudes.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. That's a really
Where
good point.
is the opportunities information coming from? There is the source of Indeed, but if I understand correct, this is actually a project that YouScience is undertaking, and you are filling the resources there. Is that correct?
Yes. So unlike websites like, trying to think of another one like ZipRecruiter, a lot of other like job board websites will basically just scrub the internet and say these are all employers in your area, and they'll just give you all of that information. YouScience does it a little bit differently because we don't want to just become another job board. So what I can show you, I'll show you what it looks like for a student, because a student result looks a little bit different. When they click on their opportunities, they're going to see, and I'll even change this to, I don't know, I'll try Portland. So if we look at a specific area, so let's say this student happened to be in Portland, it's going to show them local employers that have already talked to YouScience. So we have someone in our staff, we call them our employer engagement managers. His name is Brian Arend. He was one of those faces at the very beginning that I wanted to introduce you to. Brian works with employers across Oregon and Washington, and he basically calls around or goes and visits different companies. He goes to some job fairs and talks to different businesses, lets them know what YouScience is and what we do. And then based on what that conversation looks like, they can decide to sign up. So it doesn't cost employers anything to be a part of this, but it's a great way for them to get their logo out in front of some students. It's a great way for them to kind of build those connections and let students know, hey, we hire in a lot more areas than you might think. So for example, senior living.
Hey, did you ever receive any type of activation code or account? Oh, I probably did some time ago.
Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry, I couldn't tell if there was an actual question. So if we click on Morningstar, for an example, you might know about hospitality and tourism, or health science, or business management, but these are all of the different areas that this specific employer is interested in hiring, or that they currently hire in. So you can see there's a lot of different fields that a student might not think about, like marketing, for example. Morningstar Senior Living needs a marketing department, right? They need a finance department. So when a student clicks on a specific employer, they get to see the blurb that the employer lists for them. So it's a little bit of a summary. They see how many employees are currently working there. And then they get to see specific locations for that specific employer.
So I think
this one,
oh, go ahead.
Yeah. This one has locations in Beaverton and Clackamas and Portland. So that's why this one's showing up for this student. They can also click on Learn More to go to that career page.
Melissa, that's a great point, and it's one of the reasons we brought it up, is that it is a chance for you to call upon YouScience and say, hey, how about our region? As well as there are means and methods, and we'll do this in later sharings. There are means and methods by which you can engage with business and industry and also get them to start populating your local information. And so that is an area of growth for all of us. And of course, getting into those opportunities is probably going to be at that 10th, 11th, 12th grade level in those deeper dives. So we'll continue to bring you updates on that. And if your area really wants to get involved, possibly create a consortium amongst schools in the region, and or communicate with ODE and YouScience, and we'll work with you to create a process and program to help engage businesses. Beth Molenkamp.
There's a good follow-up question too. What's the range? Like, you know, if they typed in Medford, what would be the radius?
Yeah, great question. So the way that our system is built right now is it's going to go through our entire list of employers. We have over 3,000, I think, in our system now. So it's going to go through that entire list of employers, and it's going to find the ones that are closest. So right now it's not within a range, it's just the closest ones in our list. But I've heard that feedback from a couple people, and I've passed this along to our developers to say we would really love to have like a radius scale. So I could say within 20 miles or within 50 miles or within 100 miles. So that's something that they're going to add into it, but it's just not built out right now. So as of today, it's just the closest employers to your area. So what I will say is if you have your students looking at it and they go, none of these are in our area, they're all in Portland and we're not near Portland. That's where you as the administrator can work with us at YouScience. You can either invite companies. So on your administrator side, there's this invite new company button. So if you've already got some of those connections to local jobs in your area, you can invite them directly. You can also let me know. You can let Brian Arend, the EEM, the Employer Engagement Manager, know. He would love to call them for you and do the pitching so that you don't have to. But yeah, if you can kind of do that warm connection for us and say, I'm really interested in connecting you to the YouScience platform, that really helps us just kind of get them logged in and set up. Because it takes them about 5 minutes to fill out the account page and it costs them nothing. So it's a really great opportunity.
Thank you. We're going to fly through a couple more. Why would I put the results on hold? The only recommendation is if you want to walk and talk through the results as a team, as a squad, as a group, as a crew, then put it on hold so that you can release that hold and everybody gets to explore at the same time. Otherwise, leaving it in its standard format, student will finish the brain games and immediately have access to their results as soon as they finish their last one. And then really appreciate these analog techniques. This is awesome. So this idea that Lori shared about passing out an index card, printing it out so that you go to get student started, download invitation codes, you can print out, and then it was added in the chat, mail merge it, and you can create those stickers that you can put onto index and so forth. Should I have kids retake the brain games each school year? I have students that come back to take my class a second or third time. The recommendation is only if when they were taking the brain games, there was a lot of disturbance, distraction, and they felt that they weren't completely engaged in it because the results do not change. I have personally taken the games 6 times in 6 different moods and affects, whether sleepy or angry or happy or sad or lonely or tired. That's right, Morgan, lonely. And my results came back 99% the same. Like I had almost the same results every single time. So it would be recommended if they had that disturbing test taking experience, brain game taking experience as a good reason to, or if you simply have a kid that like wants to do it and they're eager to do it and they're engaged, go for it. You have access to it. You would just communicate with YouScience to do a reset and open up the brain games again for a new test brain games taking opportunity for your student.
Yeah.
These are great questions. Thank you. Question on last year, 8th grade, being able to now take, as you mentioned, level up. Can you speak to that again and where to find or if new invite is needed for these students every year? So one more time, Jerica, if you could reflect again on if an 8th grader was going to level up, because we do have these 8th graders, right? They are ready to go. You know who they are. So how might they level up in the 8th grade year, Jerica, to get into the high school level, please?
Absolutely. So I'm going to try and find, I think it was Lon that had that button. So if we look here at Lon's account, Lon is an 8th grader. You can see here at, I guess now he's a 9th grader, but he can still log in and click on his career clusters. He could see all of his 8th grade results, but he's not going to really want to just stick with those yet. He wants to keep discovering. So if he's ready to level up, he's just going to click on keep discovering, and that's going to take him to the high school version of the brain games. And once he completes this battery, those middle school assessment results are going to be wiped out and just replaced with the high school results. So it's going to just update for him as soon as he finishes that interest profiler for the high school level. So until he finishes those, he can still go back and review his career clusters. He can still go back and review his talents. And then the question on like, how do I get them that button, or do I need to move them to the high school? A lot of times that question comes up of like, how do I get their account moved, right? And basically you're just going to go through that bulk upload process. And because they already exist in the system, I guess hopefully, if they have the same email in middle school to high school, they'll be able to just move over directly into your school account. They'll get a little button that says or it's not a button, it's a pop-up. So I wonder if I have a screenshot of it somewhere, but basically when they first log in, instead of seeing this page first, it'll be blocked out with a pop-up that says your network is growing, and it'll say, you know, Medford High School wants you to join this group. Do you accept? And so it'll basically move them from the middle school to high school if they click accept. And if they don't click accept, that's okay. It'll pop up again for them. And they can always go over here and claim that code. So if they are being moved over, they'll click on that and it'll just move them to the high school. Lori, I see your hand
and then
up.
Lisa. Yep.
Thank you. I'm thinking about some special ed students or some kids that have modifications. Is there a way that we can make the time a little bit longer for them before they have to choose one of those? Is there a modification button somewhere?
That is a great question. We don't actually have like an extension that we can add on for those students, but it is totally up to you. We don't think that there really needs to be any accommodation, because the cool thing about YouScience is that we're not looking at them compared to like the general population or like the rest of the students. We're looking at them compared to them. And so there's really no need for accommodation. They can go at their own speed. They can take as much time as they need. Each one of them is a timed section, but they can work as long as they want to within that time window. So if it's a 5-minute game and they only want to work for 3 minutes, that's completely fine. And you're going to see that with students, whether they have an IEP or a 504 plan or not. Some of your students are just not going to want to work for the whole 7-minute or 15-minute game. And our system is actually tracking that to see how long are they engaged in this brain game, because some aptitudes are stronger because we enjoy them and we like working with them. And so we'll work through that whole game and enjoy the whole time. Others are going to be a little bit more frustrating or challenging, and we may not want to finish it, or we may kind of get stumped. There's one that I think of all the time for me. Brainstorming is not one of my strongest aptitudes. And the idea of that game is to write as many things as you can for 5 minutes straight. And that like wears me out, because I'll write for 2 minutes and then go, okay, I can't think of anything else. And that's one of my aptitudes. That's just who I am. So we do have some recommendations for students. You can absolutely do any of these or additional ones. If you want to have a screen reader, that's totally fine. If you want to, give them noise canceling headphones or put them in a quiet room to help them focus, that's totally fine too. We just don't have anything built into the system for those types of accommodations. But that's a great question.
I will say, Lori, the one thing, if you do have a student that gets through it and they want to keep going, but that timer goes off, you and the student can work together and send in that request to reset that section of the test. Okay, so that might be, and we have had some teachers say that has been incredibly successful. The student then goes back, and what's happening is the brain games are studying how quickly the students increase their answering cycle, right? And so they're not getting an A or an F, they're getting a how engaged and how the process is working for them. These are great questions. I'm going to grab just the one more, and then we're going to get back to Jerica's.
Did Lisa have a question?
Yeah,
as well?
Lisa. So the question was, there's a lot of change between 9th and 12th grade, but you recommend only taking it once in high school. Lisa, it's not going to change. It's going to be a very minuscule change. But again, I'm going to go back to, if you've got students very engaged and students are also moving through this interest, the interest part may change dramatically. The interest section on the brain games may change dramatically, but what you're going to see in the career cluster and skills aptitudes tests is those are going to be very similar to whether it was their 9th or 12th grade experience. Also, Jerica, correct me if I'm wrong, but students, once they complete the high school section, then can continue to add some of the additional elements. I believe it's up to 5 more brain games they can take and get into that young adult range. So if you have that accelerated or extended learning opportunity, there's another chance for them to keep adding on. So possibly take the original 12 in 9th grade, do the extra 5 in 11th or 12th grade. And if you have an eager student, go for it. Let them take it again. That engagement is a huge part of the growing and learning process. So awesome questions. We're going to get back into Jerica, and we'll keep populating answers. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the interest section changing over time, because like you said, our aptitudes do stay the same. We have 50 years of 50 years of data to show us that your aptitudes really do stay the same after puberty. So usually ninth grade is when, students kind of are solidified into those aptitudes. However, they can meet new people, they can try new activities, they can completely change their interests and even their interpersonal styles. A lot of us found that through the pandemic, we were like, oh, maybe I am an introvert because I actually love working from home. That was something that I found out about myself. I was much more of a blended energizer than I thought that I was. Where my whole life I thought I was an extrovert. And then suddenly I found myself at home and I thought, I actually love this. So our interpersonal styles and our interests, those change all the time. And we're happy to reset those 2 brain games for a student as often as they want. They can chat in on our website here and just talk to those real people that I mentioned. They can send a quick chat and say, I really want to update my interest. Or even if they say something to our chat team, like, I don't feel like these results match me. Our chat team is actually trained on how to talk to those students about it and say, hey, here's why it might not feel like it's a good fit for you. Let's reset your interest in interpersonal styles and see if that helps update some of those results and make you feel better about those results. So that's something that they can reset as often as they want to. We even recommend it every year if you wanted to. That's something that we're going to build into the system that you didn't notice yet. If you look at the student results, there's no button here for them to reset on their own, but coming soon, hopefully, we're going to have an option for them to actually retake interest in interpersonal sections, and they can do that at will.
Okay, so we are at 4:30. Everybody shake your limbs out. Take that swig of coffee or water. And Jerica's had her coffee. Keep on going. All right, here we go.
All right, awesome. So the Help Center is the next thing that I want to show you. The Help Center is where you can find all of those tutorials and lesson plans and resources. These are the ones created by YouScience. We've got tons of videos in here. You can either go through the cards here. So you can look at the discovery, career guidance. You can find some of our classroom activities. You can look at videos and trainings down here, or you can use this search function. The search bar is one of my favorite tools on youscience.com. You can search for any keyword that you're looking for. So for example, if I want to make this a bit more engaging, my students have finished their brain games, but now what? I can look for things like a lesson plan, or for example, a workbook. So if I'm looking for a student workbook, if I can type. So I can look at student workbooks, I can look at the snapshot student worksheets, post-secondary student workbooks. So all of those resources are available for you. You can look for things like invite. If I forgot how Jerica said to invite a single student, I can look for inviting individuals. And you'll see that there's a resource for you with step-by-step instructions and a handy little video to walk you through it. So we've tried to think of just about everything that you might ask and put it in here. So feel free to just kind of peruse, look around, see if there's anything that strikes your fancy. But there's a lot of information. If I click on the Discovery Career Guidance, you can see that it's broken down by section. So I've got my high school resources, middle school resources, post-secondary, if you happen to work at some of those higher ed locations, frequently asked questions. If you partner with SCORE and you want to look at that, there are some SCORE resources here as well. Within each one of these, so if I click see more on Summit, I can see that there's implementation planning, and then it goes in order of how I would use it. So planning for my implementation, then I want to kick off the material or kick off to the students in the school. I want to walk through those results with them. I want to communicate with my community about it. I want to go through some engaging lesson plans. It's all in order for you, and each one of these is a folder with a ton of resources in it. So you could spend a lot of time going through here and finding some resources that you really like, but hopefully everything is kind of done for you so that it's as easy as possible. Any questions on the Help Center before we move on?
I want to go back, and I think on the cards that you showed there, point out please that the main page of that Help Center, Resource Center, if you wouldn't mind, Jerica, that
Sure.
the cards, this Discovery Career Guidance, folks, great resources. This is our responses from people out there using it. Great resources in there. You do not have to build anything new. Scroll down if you wouldn't mind, please. And the classroom activities, great resources. Don't have to build anything new. Up in the middle, I think you'll notice Georgia Career Guidance resources. someday there's going to be an Oregon card on this page. So
'Cause we've
when
got
you
Utah.
do, and Utah, when you do build something new, please share it with us. Please share it with us, because then those resources will become part of our system, our career connected learning system. So thank you for that opportunity to plug that right there.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. The classroom activities are a little bit different from the lesson plans. I just want to point out that difference. Lesson plans within our knowledge base are all editable. You can add to, you can take away, you can modify the text, you can do whatever you want. The classroom activities are more of a PDF. And so those are going to be more of those, like, I always think of teachers, pay teachers like print and go. Like, I don't want to have to prep anything. I just want something that I can print out and hand to the student and say I'm done. So those last second sub plans, if you need something on hand immediately, these classroom activities are a really great source. They're broken down by grade level, so they'll tell you exactly what grade groups it's a good fit for. And a lot of these already have handout. It's got like a lesson plan for you, and then example work and student handouts for you. So when I say print and go, it really is print and go. Fantastic last second sub plans if you need them. Let me go back here. I go over here. All right, so as we finish up for today, I wanted to talk about timelines. Kicking off to your students, go ahead and plan for just about 5 to 10 minutes. We've got videos, we've got activities, we've got different exercises that your students can do to help build up that anticipation. Create account student bios, 5 minutes tops. Your students are used to creating accounts for things. So going through that, what's your name? What grade are you in? Those kinds of questions, it doesn't take them long at all. Student brain games, again, 60 minutes for middle school, 90 minutes for high school and beyond. You can take breaks. We encourage you to take breaks. Don't try and finish it all in one day. And then go through your student results. We have found social and emotional learning and self-awareness and confidence grows exponentially after 20 minutes of YouScience. So if you will go ahead and set aside 20 minutes for your students to go through those results and read about themselves and build up that confidence, it's going to pay dividends. There are additional activities and lesson plans here that just links back to the Help Center. So feel free to click on that as you go through those slides. Also wanted to share with you this implementation roadmap that we put together. This is specific for the state of Oregon, but I love it so much I'm thinking about modifying it and using it nationwide. So this is something that we put together with Jim and Beth and just the whole Oregon team. But this is what we have seen to lead to a successful YouScience experience. So this is all in the slides. You can absolutely download a copy of it. You can make a poster out of it if you want to, however you wanted to do that. But these are not necessarily like a step-by-step do this first kind of guide, as much of it is like all of these things together tend to lead to successful experiences. So we can talk a little bit more about these, but building a team, don't do it all by yourself. Have some people around you to help support this. The more staff that are engaged in the brain games themselves or have taken the brain games for themselves, the better. Identify your community partners, whether that is a workforce development board, or if it is a chamber of commerce, or if it is local employers or parents. Talk to your community about YouScience. Engage student voice. Let them be a part of the plan and talk about their own YouScience results. Celebrate that with them. Establish your timeline. Make sure that you have some plans in place to say who is taking these brain games, what grade levels are we planning on working with, when do we want them to take them, whose class time is that going to come out of? Are we going to do it before school, after school? Is it going to be in the computer lab? Is it going to be one-on-one? How are we going to do this? Make it a school-wide initiative. So definitely connect with everyone in your school. Like I said, the more the merrier. And then of course, learn from others and share with others. We have knowledge-based articles and lesson plans that you can add to if you want. Like Jim said, we would love to have a little Oregon card that says, here's some Oregon resources, but we've also got those office hours and CCL resource hubs and Oregon Open Learning. There's tons of other resources for you to help make this successful. Taking a breath.
I'm going to jump in for you there while you breathe.
Go ahead.
I had an incredible opportunity to interview an assistant superintendent of an ESD that supports Decatur, Georgia. 85% of middle schools and high schools in Georgia, their students take the YouScience brain games. They have a completely integrated component to the YouScience results with their plan and profile work and doing that engagement at the middle school, high school. But something that they shared with us, she said their number one complaint during the pandemic was that they had to cancel their YouScience night for their high schools. What they would do is at the local high school, the feeding middle schools, the high school, and the businesses around would gather for a YouScience evening where the middle school and high school kids, and I've got these in the notes if you want to find me in the notes of the office hour. Middle school, high school students there, their parents are invited. Students are on display showing their much about their results, any kind of work product that they created that they moved into after processing the results and working with their teachers and counselors and mentors. Businesses were invited. They provided accounts to the local businesses to take the brain games so that when they came to the schools and saw what the kids were doing, it started this interconnectedness where they started to see their future employees in the setting of the high school. In addition, they had this change in their community where the businesses were starting to reallocate their human resource because they were discovering the skills and aptitudes and talents of the people in their business. So some amazing stories when you kind of go big with the process. So get a hold of us if you ever want to explore that, brainstorm it, or need a thought partner in that. Additionally, I'll be visiting Georgia in October. So if you have any questions you'd like me to ask them based on their large profile work, send those to me in an email or in the chat. Thank you, Jerica. Hope you got a breath. Back to you.
I did. Thank you. So a couple of additional resources, some things that are like a be sure to do this. Complete your ODE implementation form. Jim said in the chat, 5 more schools submitted just while we were in today's meeting. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. It takes just a few minutes, I promise, but it is super helpful in making sure that your account is set up and that we are tracking all of this for funding for 2 years. Additionally, explore that help center. I told you there's a ton of resources. Please go check them out. They're awesome. If you come up with a resource that's really great and even better than anything we have in there, we'd love for you to send it our way so that other teachers can benefit from that as well. Additionally, feel free to contact our support team if you need anything. Obviously, reach out to me. I am your designated person, but if for some reason I'm in a meeting or if I'm not available at that exact moment and you need something, reach out to them. They are fantastic. That's where I learned just about everything I did about the company. So feel free to reach out. Final thoughts on Career Connected Learning office hours. There is that registration link. Again, this starts on September 22nd, where we'll do our first Q&A session. If you have started implementing by then, we'd love for you to come and ask some questions or share some successes, talk about what implementation looks like at your school. That'll run all the way through June 22nd. Every 4th Thursday, except for major holidays, is going to be YouScience Day. So if you wanted to mark your calendar for that and just come to some of those sessions, there'll be a lot of success stories and questions and answers and all kinds of good stuff. Questions for me? I know we've touched on a lot of them as we've gone, but this is a great time to just, any other thoughts, burning questions?
I'll address the one that's in the chat. Thank you, Morgan. Excellent question. So the diploma requirements went through a review process. They are releasing that report to the legislative body, and that will be then considered by legislation. Change will take place in conjunction to their response and reaction. But what we are doing is recognizing that the personal education plan and profile could be more robust in Oregon. And we are having a conversation with YouScience even as early as next week about how that might look like in terms of fusing those opportunities together. So we are moving ahead with that. In addition, we're revamping the plan and profile page on the ODE website, and we should have a new look, a new feel, and a lot more information for folks within about a 14 to 21 day period. So question.
Yeah, Jim, thank you for that. And I think the timing is perfect. You know, if you look at that, as those changes work their way through the legislative body, the 1 credit requirement regarding kind of future planning and career and interviewing and all that. And I can see YouScience being placed within that requirement as an excellent tool. So thank you for hopping early on that.
You betcha. Thank you. And some folks are taking YouScience and coupling it with a really strong Oregon CIS process right now and just fusing the two together. So there's also that place in space. Is it possible YouScience will be adding resume builder pieces? Kaylee, if I pronounce your name correctly, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to put it on the list of questions for YouScience.
We sure hope so. It's something that we are definitely working on. I have seen some like mock-ups of what it looks like, but it hasn't been released just yet. It should be coming soon though. So yes, that is definitely in the works. I can't tell you like specific dates. It's not going to be tomorrow, but it should be sooner than later. So yes, thank you for asking that.
Andy, excellent question. Results are now, and I believe this is a little bit because Oregon kept asking the question, but results for students are now available in Spanish. The test itself is not available in Spanish. The directions are available in Spanish. If you have any need for translation into language that's going to serve multiple students in your region and you don't have that translation support, to get the how to take the test directions translated from the English version into another language, would you please reach out to us? We do have some translation supports built into this pilot project. We don't have translation supports built into put the test into another foreign language. That is a huge undertaking that YouScience is in discussion and in development about. And that is a nationwide conversation that they've been addressing. But Andy, we hope that that will help. Also, Andy, to address that point, we've had feedback from teachers who have said the time that where they have had students who are monolingual or English learners and have felt somewhat detached and disconnected from their education experience, the time that an educator, instructional assistant, education paraprofessional has spent with that person, that youngster, helping support them go through the YouScience brain games and the results, have come back and said the engagement of the student is escalated, that they see this passion showing up in the students that are getting that extra bit of attention and love in going through this process. And we had a marvelous share last year. Yvonne Hernandez from Lost River just talked about the hope of YouScience that he's seeing in students while they may speak Spanish, it was 10, 11, 12 different dialects because their country of origin was so vastly different. So just some good stories there, and we hope that you will also share with us as you learn. Again, reach out to us if we can help with any translation on those test taking directions, or if there's an element that we can help you with, please do reach out. Thank you, Andy, for the question. Other questions folks have? And at this point, I'm going to stop the recording.